The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are having a sneaky, great offseason. I did not expect to say that this offseason. At the beginning of the offseason, if you would have told me that I would be sitting here claiming that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are having arguably the most underrated offseason in the NFL this year, I would say you're a clown. You do not know what you're talking about. Considering the clown show that we witnessed during the 2023 season, it appeared that post Tom Brady, this franchise would just dive right into the sewer and once again become one of the most incompetent franchises in pro sports. But so far, from what I've seen from Jason Licht and company, this Tampa Bay offseason has been absolutely superb. And there's almost nothing that I can get angry about or I can nitpick. It began with Tom Brady retiring. The greatest player ever, the man that puts you on the map, retires. Your spotlight is gone. Your expectations are gone. But this franchise does not slow down. They continue to look for ways to improve. And most importantly, although they're not in the Super Bowl window for this season, everybody knows that, they're looking to quickly move from era to era successfully. They're not going to let this Tom Brady thing linger. Then you have the Byron Leftwich fiasco. So you have to deal with getting rid of him, finding a new offensive staff, and they make all the correct moves in terms of identifying the issue with the team and the coaching, moving on from it, and not only moving on from it, but going in a polar opposite direction. The Byron Leftwich offense and this new Tampa offense is polar opposite, couldn't be any different, and they have now a young, vibrant energy at offensive coordinator coming from the Seattle Seahawks, where they were at $49 million over the cap. 49! Numerous key pieces as free agents, right? This wasn't just Tom Brady retiring. It was, okay, he's retiring. Now we have to convince Levante David to come back at his old age and lead this defense. Even though Tom Brady's gone, we don't have a quarterback. He comes back on a one-year deal. And you may say, well, what was the point of that? He's older. He's not really going to be here long. And we're not competing. Why not just move on? He's a key piece in that locker room and for this foundation of the culture. You need him in that building, at least for one more year, to move into the next phase. Then you have Jamel Dean, who's the player that you look at it and say, well, Tom Brady's gone. Jamel Dean is obviously going to leave and get a huge contract somewhere else because that team's not going to be competitive. You managed to get Jamel Dean a lot cheaper than I would have thought. Not only that, you make the right cuts. You move on from Leonard Fournette, who was not very good last year, even though I love playoff Lenny. He was not playoff Lenny last year. He was regular season Lenny. And then you had Donovan Smith, who was one of the absolute worst offensive tackles in football last year. Mistake after mistake. You bring back somebody like Anthony Nelson, who was a very solid player for you last year and a key depth contributor, arguably even a starter. Speaking of the defense, you add two free agents that I really like that are in their prime. Greg Gaines from the LA Rams, who's basically been the Robin to Aaron Donald's Batman and can do the same in Tampa Bay with Vita Vea. He improves your interior defensive line from day one. He's more consistent and a better player at this point than what we saw from Akeem Hicks last year. And then you add Ryan Neal, who I thought was the most underrated safety on the market this offseason. a perfect complement to Antoine Winfield Jr. at safety, and I think an improvement over Mike Edwards. I think he's an improvement over what Keanu Neal gave you last year. I think you're totally fine with letting those guys walk in order to get Ryan Neal in the building as a phenomenal box safety. Somebody that reminds me a lot of Jordan Whitehead in a lot of different ways. Yes, Sean Murphy-Bunting left. You can't keep everybody, but you kind of knew that was going to come. And not only that, you get Shaq Barrett back. You get your best pass rusher off the edge back on your depth chart for 2023. So defensively, they really managed to come out arguably on top from what they were last year. And you still have that draft to replenish the depth and get younger, because that's been a major issue for this team the last couple of years. Injuries. And within injuries, age. There's a reason this team is getting injured, because a lot of these players are older. This is an aging roster. So you have to replenish that talent, replenish that depth. And I felt like Tampa Bay this year, this offseason, did a great job of not only identifying players that can help them today, but also players that are still young and can actually build with this team, with this roster. You still have some older players out there. You still have your Shaq Barrett. You still have your Levante David. But this overall is a much younger defense than what it was last year entering the season, with guys like Logan Ryan and guys like Keanu Neal in the secondary. So you have a team now with Tampa Bay that's getting younger, and I think there's a priority to get faster and more physical from Jason Licht, and he sees players like Ryan Neal that can contribute right now, but also potentially stick around into the future and build with the rest of this defense. The offensive line, I'm sure, is one of their biggest areas of importance this offseason. Not only this free agency period, but I'm sure it's going to be addressed during the draft. And I think they've already done a phenomenal job to improve this offensive line from last year. Yeah, they let go of Shaq Mason. But overall, when you look at the line, it has more depth. Tristan Wirfs is still your all-star superstar, is going to get a long-term contract, whether that's left tackle or right tackle. I assume Tampa Bay is probably going to look to the tackle position in the early rounds of this year's draft. But otherwise, you get Ryan Jensen back from injury. That counts. Aaron Stinney is back from injury. That also counts as a guy that can maybe compete for one of these starting guard spots, if not be a very solid number 3 in the rotation. Robert Hainsey could also maybe compete for a guard spot. And then you bring in Matt Filer just recently. I thought really nice signing, really savvy signing. A guy that can play at 2 different positions. He can play at right tackle or he can play at guard. And he's done both at a solid level. He's somebody that you can plug and play if you don't have an answer with a younger player through the draft, or maybe one of these guys developing. He is easily someone that can play starting snaps in the NFL. So I really like the depth that the Tampa Bay Bucs have tried to acquire in terms of savvy pickups that have not cost a lot of money, that are undervalued names, but I like every single one of these names, and I like how they fit within this roster. I think Jason Licht has done a phenomenal job of trying to keep this roster competitive enough to see if Todd Bowles can make something happen. Now, the quarterback position is obviously screaming for an upgrade. Baker Mayfield, to me, is not the answer and will not be the answer for any team in the NFL moving forward. He's simply a bridge quarterback. Now, is Kyle Trask that guy? Personally, from my evaluation, from what I've seen, he does not appear to be the guy. So I could also see Tampa Bay, maybe if one of these quarterbacks do fall, they could snatch him up. But they could also just simply look at 2023 as a bridge year for 2024 to get that quarterback. And that's probably where they're going to go here. But overall, I've been extremely impressed with Tampa Bay's approach. From their ability to move on from mistakes, from the coaching side of things to the players. From Leonard Fournette to Donovan Smith, identifying players that maybe at one time were great for you and maybe helped you win championships. Coaches like Byron Leftwich who had success but just were not it last year. You moved on from them. That's what good organizations do. They identify their problems and they fix them and they attack them. And I feel like even though Tom Brady's no longer on this team and in this building, Tampa Bay is trying to recraft a team that can be a contender in short order. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be in 2023, but even as soon as 2024, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs are in a position where they're competing once again for the NFC South and competing in the NFC, because Jason Licht appears to be one of the smartest, savviest general managers and understands how to build a roster and how to find contributors that may be going under the radar. And that's exactly what the Bucs are right now. An under the radar offseason that I think needs more attention, and I think a lot of people need to be talking about how impressive, despite the circumstances, the Bucs front office has been this offseason. And we have not even gotten to the draft yet. So Bucs fans, I would feel encouraged with where your team is at. I would feel encouraged with the direction of this team. And although Tom Brady is gone and that era is over and Mike Evans is getting older and Levante David's getting older and Shaq Barrett's getting older, sorry to remind you, it appears that your franchise is in the right hands. And 2023 will be about finding out whether Todd Bowles is still the answer at coach or you need to move in a new direction. And whether or not you have some key foundational pieces on this roster moving forward to build with a young quarterback. So man, I just have to say, did not plan on making this video. Just really felt like I needed to get this off my chest. Extremely impressed with Jason Licht and company in Tampa Bay. Keep it up. Thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. Peace.